Hey friends, hey, it's Lisa from Black Women Stitch and the Stitch Please podcast. And do you want to stay in the loop with everything Black Women Stitch? Sure you do. So our weekly newsletter is where it's at. You'll get podcast updates, community news, behind the scenes peeks, and ways to support the work we're doing. Whether you're a longtime listener or just getting to know us, this is the easiest way to stay connected. So click the link and sign up today. Promise we will not flood your inbox, just your creative spirit. Thanks so much. See you soon.
Hello, Stitchers. Welcome to Stitch Please, the official podcast of Black Women Stitch, the sewing group where Black Lives Matter. I'm your host, Lisa Woolfork. I'm a fourth-generation sewing enthusiast with more than 20 years of sewing experience. I am looking forward to today's conversation, so sit back, relax, and get ready to get your stitch together.
Hey friends, hey, it's Lisa from Black Women Stitch and the Stitch Please podcast. And as I say every week, this is a very special episode because I am bringing you the genius behind the Out of Many Studios, and that is Shanya Lewis. Shanya is a graduate of FIT. She is a creative, an artist, a designer, and someone who believes very powerfully both in the sustainability of sewing with organic materials and the beautiful power of clean craft in stitching. And I am so grateful to see her. I first encountered Shanya's work on TikTok when she was demonstrating some technique. I think it was about fitting bus cups. It was just beautiful sewing. And to kind of watch beautiful sewing up close, it really put a smile in my heart. And so welcome, Shanya Lewis. Thank you so much for being with us today. Welcome to the Stitch Please podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for reaching out to me, and thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk.
I'm so excited to talk with you today. What is your sewing story? How did sewing come into the life of Shanya Lewis?
Okay, so I learned to sew as a child, as a lot of us do. Probably a grandmother or mother. I don't specifically remember who. I do remember trying my hand at like making some of my own clothing very poorly. But I tried. I've always been a very sort of hands-on, like DIY creative person.
Mm-hmm.
And that led me on a path to pursuing a creative career. I went to design school for fashion design at FIT, and that really helped to build my sewing skills. And they pretty much taught me most of what I know now about sewing and what I've been trying to pass on through social media. And yeah, so it helped to shape my skills. I work as a freelance designer. I run a small sewing studio out of my home. And I work with different clients of different sizes and do some prototyping. One of my main clients is a company that does automotive crash testing.
Wow.
And I do some pretty intricate pattern making and sewing for them. So I feel like that has also helped to really develop my sewing skills. It's not stuff that you can go into a store and buy. They sell to sort of like to car companies, the government, and things like that. So it's very specialized stuff. My background is also in industrial design. So I went to, in addition to FIT, I went to Parsons I got a master's in industrial design from Parsons, and I sort of work back and forth between both worlds in my normal day-to-day freelance career.
That's really amazing. I guess you took to New York quite well. So you go to FIT, which is the Fashion Institute of Technology. I should spell that out for folks who don't know. Yes. And then there's Parsons School of Design. They're not that far from each other in terms of location.
Yes. They're sort of competing schools in terms of like fashion design. But I went to Parsons for a different major, not fashion.
But you have both sides or two unique yet complementary sides, it seems, to go from fashion design to industrial design, because I'm like, well, I guess someone has to make the stuff for the crash test dummies.
Well, Yeah, so industrial design is, I mean, it's obviously it's another design discipline. It's pretty much just like it's a sort of general design product, physical product design discipline.
Okay.
Because literally any product like that you can think of outside of fashion. So fashion
Yes.
would be like a more specialized discipline. But in terms of being an industrial designer, working day to day, you can work on furniture. You can work on like paper goods. If you have an engineering background, you can work on like cars.
Yes. Yes.
So it's a more general design discipline, and I do feel like that, along with my background in fashion, they work very well to complement each other.
Now, I read that you majored in knitwear when you were at the Fashion Institute of Technology, and I think you described it as, I think I found this from the website, soft, cozy, textural, sculptural, and timeless. Can you talk about why does knitwear have such power for you? But maybe dial it back again and ask first, what does it mean to major in knitwear? And how did you develop your understanding of knitwear being soft, cozy, textural, and sculptural?
Good question. So probably I've always loved sweaters. I grew up in Boston, a very cold, snowy place. So probably from that, I just developed an appreciation of love for sweaters. Sweaters are just cozy. And when I was in college, so at FIT, towards the end of at some point, I think the first semester, towards the end of the first semester of your third year.
Okay.
Correct. You have they might have changed it now, but this is what it was when I was there. You get the opportunity to choose an area in fashion design to specialize in.
Okay.
And the options when I was a student there were knitwear, children's wear, sportswear, which is also athletic apparel, but also just like pretty much everyday thing that you wear.
Like a little two-piece set, a two-piece button up.
Sort of like a suit would be considered sportswear, and evening special occasion. So yeah, there were 4 options: knitwear, children's wear, sportswear, and evening wear. And out of all those 4, I was probably drawn more to. I was definitely drawn more to knitwear. My backup would have been sportswear, but knitwear specifically, I think for me at the time, I would say I didn't necessarily have like a huge vision in terms of like path, but I loved creating things from scratch, and knitwear offered the opportunity. It seemed to me at the time to be the most creative, the opportunity to be the most creative of all the disciplines, because in knitwear, you're not just designing the silhouette, you're creating the fabric. So you're going from the ground up. Like we're in sportswear and in the other disciplines, you can certainly design a print and so on and so forth, but that's not necessarily the main focus. Whereas within knitwear, like that is it, like the fabric, the silhouette, that's all part of the design. So that's why I gravitated more towards knitwear.
So when you explain knitwear, I tend to understand, when I think of knitting, I think of a person with 2 knitting needles knitting. This is not how you all knit fabric for knitwear at the Fashion Institute of Technology. How did you all develop? I think you use knitting machines. Is that what you used?
We did. So we were taught knitting for the purposes of like commercial production, which involved using knitting machines. You could use knitting needles. I think we had a couple lessons on like hand knitting.
Wow.
But I was taught machine knitting. And to be quite honest, at the time when I chose knitwear, I maybe knew how to do just the basic knit and purl stitch, and I wasn't great at it.
Okay.
And again, I think I learned from my grandmother. So we were taught hand knitting, but a lot of the principles are the same. The stitches are the same.
Oh, wow.
And so from that, I taught myself with what I learned about machine knitting, and with the help of YouTube tutorials, I taught myself how to hand knit.
Wow.
And for my final like thesis garment, I ended up knitting a leather jacket, which was very time consuming and very expensive because I outsourced leather to have it cut into like strips that I was able to knit with. And I had to use metal needles because they were slippery so that the yarn would like fall off the needles. But my hands, I was doing this in the winter in New York. It took me about 3 months to do it.
Wow.
With my school schedule and everything. Yeah, it took me about 3 months to finish it. And my hands were just dead at the end. They were just cold because it just was such a process. But I still have it with me. It's a beautiful piece, but I will probably never do it again.
Knitting a leather sweater by
Jacket,
knitting a leather jacket. My mind is being boggled right now. The look on my face is embogglement because
one of the things, I'll let you finish.
No, it's just exciting, because my next question was going to be, how do you go from knitwear to leather bags, which is one of the things out of many studios. Yeah, because it feels like, I'm like, oh, well, she was already thinking about leather, because one of the things I was imagining with knitwear is that, knitwear has stretch, et cetera, and leather seems, although it's an organic material, like much of what you might knit with, it's so different. But you managed to blend that by the time you finished your undergraduate career. So that's pretty impressive. Say more about that. Like, how did you get that bridge between knitwear and leather?
I will say one thing that I wanted to say. One of the things that I really enjoyed about being in school, and specifically being at FIT, was that it was competitive, but in a way that I found to be very healthy. And specifically in my year, people were doing all sorts of like really, really creative, crazy things. Like someone was knitting with like mattress fabric. Someone was knitting with paper. Like there were people who were just coming up with these really like amazing ideas, and it really pushed you to be creative.
Yes.
In I think a very healthy way. It was inspiration from my classmates, and I had developed an appreciation for leather a few years prior when I initially started at FIT. So I did, and we talked about this earlier, I did 1 year first at Northeastern University when I moved to New York, and I was living off campus when I was going to FIT. And as a design student, specifically in fashion, there are lots of tools that you need. Lots of rulers, very long rulers, curvy rulers, all sorts of tools. They're quite expensive. At the time, I did not have the money to have 2 sets. So I had a locker, but I also wanted to be able to work at home because the course load, I will tell you, at FIT, it is a lot.
Okay.
It's very, very heavy. Like no one ever had time to go on spring break. Like never. So I lived off campus, and I was traveling back and forth on the subway with these like pointy rulers that were piercing through my bags. And I started making these like giant tote bags out of cotton canvas. But it was like, it worked, but it would only last for a certain amount of time because it just wasn't durable enough to hold the rulers. And one day I was exploring the garment district in New York, and I came across this store. I think it's on like 37th Street and 8th Avenue. I forget the name of it now, but they had a scrap bin, like offcuts of leather that they would sell for very cheap. And you could find like really big pieces with just like minor imperfections, but they were perfectly fine. So I would go there, and I started getting leather. And so I started making these huge tote bags to carry my tools in out of leather. And that worked. And I think I made the first one in like probably my first year, and it lasted me throughout just because it was like, it just was so, it was like very thick leather.
Yes.
It was very durable, and it held up with my pointy giant rulers. So it held up, and, talk about sustainability.
Yes, definitely. And
Yeah.
I think that do you call that your giant leather tote? Is that
is from yes, that's where it came from. That's where it's the same. Yes. The giant leather tote that I used to sell, but I would say not take, but it's hard now to find like the quality leather in these days.
Yes. I think that times are very different than when you were in school. I felt like I remember those shops. There was always so much. They had like a big white bin outside. You could lean into it. You could almost like fit your whole body in there.
Yeah, it was so great. Yeah,
and dig and dig and dig.
Yeah, just like find treasures.
Yes. Yes. I wanted to kind of turn a bit to your current studio practice. And I read that you learned about fashion waste also during your time at FIT, and that helped to kind of shape what you're kind of practicing now in terms of sustainability. Can you talk about what that looked like close up as someone who was in New York City, right at the heart of the fashion district? What did that look like? What did you see that made you want to do something a bit different? Hey friends, hey, it's Lisa from Black Women Stitch and the Stitch Please podcast. Our Patreon community is growing and we'd love to have you in it. We recently updated our membership tiers, and now it's easier than ever to support the work of Black Women Stitch while getting exclusive perks just for you. You'll find full-length talks, behind-the-scenes updates, bonus episodes, and access to videos from the podcast and beyond. Your support helps fund the podcast, pay our team, and keep this movement going strong. Every dollar truly makes a difference. So if you've been thinking about joining, now is the perfect time. Black organizations face increasing funding challenges. Community support closes that gap. Head to our Patreon community and choose the tier that feels right for you. And thank you.
Yeah. Oh God, we're such a huge topic that we won't be able to cover it all here. But I definitely learned a bit about that when I was a student at FIT. But what really opened my eyes was the first year, I believe, after graduating. Fashion is a very competitive industry. I think initially upon graduating, I had some freelance jobs while sort of trying to find more permanent jobs, and would just, in New York, you're hustling.
Yes.
So I started working at this company called, I don't know I think it's fine to say this. It's called 260 Sample Sale. They're still around.
Okay.
They do sample sales. When I started, I think they were just in New York, but I think they've like expanded to like Miami and in LA here. But they do sample sales for larger brands, and there was just so much merchandise coming in. So a sample in like the traditional sense is something that you use for development.
Okay.
And it would have imperfections because it's a sample. Like you might get one semi-perfect sample in just like or maybe not. If for a larger brand, they're probably sampling out every size. So it would be more than one. But you wouldn't get enough to have like a whole store filled with samples. So that's sort of questionable to me. It's like, why are there so many quote unquote samples? Like, where is all this merchandise coming from? These are not actually samples. They're it's seemingly like it can't be.
Wow.
They can't actually be samples. And there was so much of it that was being sold at a discounted rate. What I think it was just like overproduction and just
I see
as a sample sale. But it sort of opened my eyes to just the level of waste. Just like why is there so much?
Yes.
That you're able to like fill this entire, and it was a very large store with like all this quote unquote sample merchandise that really wasn't sample. So I like that sort of led me down like a huge rabbit hole of like learning more about waste in the fashion industry.
Yes.
And that's actually what prompted me to pursue a career in industrial design. The program that I went to at Parsons, when I started, my class was the second class.
Oh, wow.
Just started it, and it was supposed to be sustainable mass production of goods.
Okay.
Yeah. So we had a lot of coursework that was specifically focused on sort of mindful production. I mean, sustainable mass production is questioned because mass production in itself is not
a lot
necessarily sustainable. But there are ways to like be more sustainable. I mean, these days there's so much greenwashing. Yeah. But I did learn a lot in that course. We had a lot of good readings. There's The Story of Stuff, which is a good read.
Yes.
There is, I'm looking at my bookshelf. I'm blanking on it's written by two guys. It's actually probably about 20 years old. I think I read this right before I started that program. It was on the recommended, is it the Upcycle? I forget. But the Upcycle is also a good read.
Okay, so these are just two of the books that you remember reading from college.
And I have some on my bookshelf here. And
I remember Aja Barber is an activist and a sustainability activist. She has a book called Consumed, and it talks about overconsumption. And she was on the podcast a few years ago when the book came out, talking about just fashion and how competitive it is and how difficult it can be to break in. But then there's also the supply chain itself is riddled with kind of like oppression up and down.
Yeah, there's so much. It's like it in a lot of ways, like just being a regular person working in fashion, you sort of need to be able to sort of quote unquote make it. You need to have money or like a benefactor, because if you're in a lot of instances, in order to get a good paying job, you have to start out interning. The internships are unpaid. If you're living somewhere like New York City, if you don't have someone paying your rent, how are you going to survive? So that was never an option for me. And part of why I shift to freelancing, which I currently freelancing is my full-time job. It's been my full-time job for the past 5 years. Part of why I shifted that was just the difficulty of finding full-time work. Not if you don't have, I mean, like I have contacts I have from school but even so, it's just the wages are like don't match up. It's not ideal. And with freelancing, I've been able to like work with companies outside of fashion.
Yes.
Who are still looking for people with skills, with like fashion design skills, and make a better salary, I think.
Yes. No, I appreciate that very much, because there is the conversation, and it is an old conversation about a lot of exploitation that can go on in a field where you don't see it so much as a profession, but you see it as a calling. It's a calling. And if it's a calling, then you don't have to worry about how much you make or what the actual practicalities are. And it's not that. It really
not going to pay my bills.
Exactly that.
Food on my table.
No. It's really remarkable how you've been able to kind of find a way to build a life for yourself in an industry in which this is difficult to do. And at the same time, you are sharing your skills and sharing some of the things that you've learned in fashion school or refined on your own on social media. So one of the things I was so excited to speak with you about was because I saw your sewing on TikTok on your Out of Mini channel, and just saw that you were doing things like showing people how to fit things into bra cups, showing how to do a French French seam, showing how to do these kind of elements of craft that I think sometimes get overlooked in our hurry to kind of finish a garment. Can you talk about why developing an expertise with some skills, with some sewing skills, is an important part of a sewing practice?
Yeah. So probably from my experience with freelancing, I work with a lot of like smaller brands or startup brands. And I actually work a lot through, I don't know if you're familiar with the freelancing platform Upwork, but
Yes.
I do find, I have my own website
Yes.
that's separate for my freelancing business. It's just like my shanyalewis.creative.com. And clients find me through that, but I also find clients through Upwork. And one of the things that I noticed on Upwork is just people offering things for incredibly, it's from 5 years ago when I initially started on Upwork to now, it's just become a lot more competitive. Prices have gone down. It's just like, but for things that are really, really time consuming. And I started just trying to understand, looking at what the, like how people are able to offer, like creatives are able to offer things that are very time consuming.
Yes.
At like such a low rate. And when you look at the quality of what they're giving, it's just, it's gone down significantly. And that sort of follows through with sewing. When I started on TikTok, one of the things that I noticed is that there are a lot of people, and this is like like shade.
It's not a dig. It's not shade.
But there are a lot of people like making stuff and putting out a lot of stuff, but they're doing it in like a really, they're doing it very incorrectly, to put it. So one of my first TikTok post that I think got a decent amount of views was on creating a pattern, a DIY shorts pattern tutorial. Yes. But this sort of started because I saw people trying to make their own DIY shorts, and they were just taking existing shorts and just sort of like cutting around, but it was done in such a way that there's hardly any shape. There's just like no consideration for like the front versus the back. And that's not like, maybe it'll fit, but it's not going to fit well. And it's probably not something that you're going to like, that you're going to want to keep around. Like, and these are people who are doing quote unquote upcycling. So it's like, what's the point of upcycling, or I don't know, material reuse, whatever, claiming that it's sustainability. But if you're just making something that's poorly made, that's going to fall apart in the wash, that you're not going to want to keep for a long time, like it just very much defeats the pjust So I made this tutorial. I started thinking about like, what's a quick way to make a shorts pattern? And I just came up with this way of using a tracing paper to sort of like do it very quickly and accurately.
Yes.
And I posted that, and that got a good amount of views for me.
Yes.
Not viral content because I'm not there yet, but a good amount of views for me. So that, you said something earlier that was it. I think you said expertise is sort of a dying skill.
Yeah, I feel like expertise is a bit in crisis.
Because I see, and again, no dig to like the upcyclers, but like there are these like very popular people doing upcycling on TikTok, and they have like tens of thousands of followers, and their videos get a lot of views, but they're really just making things that are very poor quality. So, and like, I've always just been a stickler for like quality. And that's why I started if there's sort of like a fast way or a long versus a longer way, that's going to produce something that's that's of a higher quality, I will always go for the longer way.
Yes.
When I make things for myself, it's like my philosophy is if you're going to spend time making it,
yes,
sewing is time consuming.
Yes.
If you're going to spend time sewing, you might as well do it right and make sure that it's like of high enough quality. so that you can have that it's special enough, high enough quality so that you can have it. You'll want to keep it for an extended period of time and not just like get rid of it.
And that's the true sustainability. Having a piece in your closet that lasts a very, very long time, and it's not going to fall apart when you wash it the first time, or if you sit down someplace.
The thing's not going to break because you don't. Yeah. I think because I went through this whole process of getting educated on sewing, and I don't know, it wasn't a skill that I sort of learned. I learned a little bit from my mom and grandma, but just not enough to go make something. I forget that there are a lot of things, sewing related skills that people don't know.
No.
So things like finishing your hems, finishing the seams so they don't fray, things like that. I just like you mentioned the bust cup video. I like when I posted that actually, I think at this point it's probably my highest viewed video. There was one thing I posted about clipping into the seam, which is what you do when you sew first. I just sort of thought that was something that
everybody knew.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I don't think we have a common sewing knowledge anymore. I think that we're all learning in different ways in different places. So for me, I grew up using the big 4 patterns, and they all had instructions in them about how to clip curves. I've done an episode on reading the pattern instructions on a big 5 pattern. Like there's tons of instructions. There's a helpline. There's a phone number. There's all this stuff that's in there. If you took time to read it. And if you didn't, then you don't know these things. So it's just really interesting to think about how people are learning and acquiring this knowledge. And, there's more than one way to skin a cat. No one is saying that there is only one way to do something. Yeah. But I also believe that quality sewing is in good service of your time and of what you are creating.
Absolutely. What's the point of spending time doing it if you're going to just do it sort of shoddy?
Yeah, it does feel like a disservice to your time. And I'm not saying that I don't have garments that I'm just like, let me just get this done. This is not for competition. This is not an heirloom piece. I just want something to wear to the gym tomorrow. And I'll wear it again and again and again, but it doesn't have to be the best thing I ever made. That's fine. I absolutely do that.
Where there's like a little thing that you're just like, I don't have the time or the energy to spend doing this the right way. I'm just going to find a workaround and it'll be fine. And in like a month or so, you'll forget about it and it's still there.
Exactly. But I do appreciate the way that you are reminding us of the value of doing things in a way that we won't have to do them later.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's for me, when I tend to like rush through something, or it's like, I know if I do this knit hem, for example, on an ITY knit fabric, and I just want to just quickly get it done and do something fast. It's like, Lisa, when you wash this and you have not done either that double needle stretch hem or a long 3-step zigzag, when you walk, that hem is going to break because you cannot have a straight stitched hem on a knit tight dress because of ease. Like that's just the human body's going to walk and the dress is going to pop. So like just little things like that. It doesn't mean that it's snobbery. It just means that these techniques were designed to produce the best results possible. And your time and your creativity deserves the best. That's how I see it for myself, at least.
No, absolutely. You're reminding me, I had one professor at FIT. I hope she's still there. She seems young enough to still be there. Although she's probably older. Karen Rippey. She made heirloom dolls in her spare time, but she just had a lot of my knowledge. I had her as a sewing instructor, and I had her as an instructor for stretch and corsetry, stretch fabrics and corsetry. And she was a wealth of knowledge, imparted so much on, she also taught at FIT and Parsons, and Pratt, which a lot of, so a lot of, that's a thing. It's like, there are these 3 schools in New York that are sort of the competing fashion schools, but a lot of the same instructors teach at all of them.
Oh, that's awesome.
But Professor Rippey, she was just so knowledgeable. And a lot of times I can sort of hear her, like when I'm doing something, the voice in the back of my head, her
yes,
voice.
it's like she's like your sewing conscience.
Yeah, this is the right way. This is the right way to do it. But yeah, she was so great. And to your point earlier, a lot of times I will say, if I'm doing something, if I'm making something, and I'm like, I'm just gonna like rush through it or take this shortcut. A lot of times, not always, but oftentimes it will end up taking me more time because I will take the shortcut and then realize that I need to go back and do it the correct way.
Yes.
Because either I will take the shortcut and it'll look fine, but I'm not pleased with the quality.
You're not satisfied.
So
You're not satisfied.
Take it out and go back and do it.
And that's because you have a standard for your work that I think is like really very good. I think it's such a powerful standard. And that happens when you start to develop a certain sense of what it means to have completeness, what it means to have a project be complete. Well, speaking of complete, believe it or not, we are at the end of our time today. It just went by so fast. I'm so grateful for you talking with me today, Shanya. I want to ask our last question, which we ask everybody, and I know you have a great answer. And it is this: the slogan of the Stitch Please podcast is that we will help you get your stitch together. Shanya Lewis, graduate of FIT and Parsons, and who is both a fashion designer and an industrial designer. Mm-hmm. What advice do you have for us to help us get our stitch together?
I would say if you're sort of a DIY seamstress, sewist, I guess is the PC term these days, maybe look at alternative sources for fabric. See what you have laying around that you don't want anymore. Let that inspire you to make something new and unique and exciting. Challenge yourself to reuse textiles that you already have.
I love it. And that'll help us get our stitch together for sure. Shanya, thank you so much for being with us today. I am so grateful. We'll be sure to include your socials on the show notes. And I'm so glad you could join us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Stitch Please, the official podcast of Black Women Stitch, the sewing group where Black Lives Matter. We appreciate you joining us this week and every week for stories that center Black women, girls, and femmes in sewing. We invite you to join the Black Women Stitch Patreon community with giving levels beginning at $5 a month. Your contributions help us bring the Stitch Please podcast to you every week. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. And come back next week and we'll help you get your stitch together.